Welcome back, true believers and spectacular Spidey fans, to another episode of Spider-Man PS4 101. So in case you missed it, we have been getting lots of new information regarding Marvel's Spider-Man, primarily relating to the game's story, different gameplay details, as well as some fun facts that you should know about the game. And to start off with, the information that excites me the most actually involves the game's rating of it being confirmed to be T for teen. Now, given everything that we know about Spider-Man PS4 is that we were already expecting it to be given a T rating. And seeing how the majority of previous Spider-Man games have also been given a T rating, it would only make sense that Marvel's Spider-Man would be given the same treatment. However, what's different this time around is actually the tone that the story is going to take in the final game. And in case you missed it, a brand new article on comicbook.com discusses about the recent news. So this article states, Spider-Man PS4's teen rating warns of suicide, slow motion killing, and designer narcotics. Marvel's Spider-Man is swinging its way to the PlayStation 4 next month, but before that happens, the good folk over at the ESRB have gone live with their rating of the game, and in turn have revealed some interesting insight into its content. Unsurprisingly, Spidey avoided the mature rating and picked up the T for teen rating, and a warning of violence, drugs, blood, and language. More specifically, the rating makes note of the game's combat, which sounds like it is punctuated with some awesome slow motion killing, mugging, bags of rock candy, or some drug which we now know to be called grave dust, suicide, and designer narcotics. Here's the full rating summary. This is an action game in which players assume the role of Peter Parker / Spider-Man in a fictional version of New York City. From a third-person perspective, players fight crime, swing around buildings, and engage in melee combat with various thugs. Characters mostly punch, kick, and throw each other during fights. Some enemy characters also use pistols and machine guns. Combat is highlighted by realistic gunfire, screams of pain, impact sounds, and occasional slow-motion sequences. One cutscene depicts a character in the background shooting himself in the head. Another cutscene depicts a mugger shooting an innocent character just out of frame. Some mission/plot lines involve drug deals and designer narcotics. One scene briefly shows a duffel bag full of white packages of the drug, and surprisingly enough, the S word actually appears in the game's dialogue. Though the suicide scene sounds a little dark, not that Spider-Man can't get dark, but that part does stick out in an otherwise very predictable rating. There's also notably no mention of sexual content or nudity, which again isn't very surprising, but does confirm that there isn't any risque romance scenes between any of the characters. And given all the info that article provided about the game's tone, I am very excited to see where this story is going to go. The last time that we actually got a very serious Spider-Man story is actually in Spider-Man Web of Shadows. And in case you didn't know, Web of Shadows is indeed my most favorite Spider-Man game, and one of the main reasons as to why that is because how serious the story was. Even though the game did have a T rating, it didn't shy away from certain story points that made the game feel more mature to the player, but mainly relating to Marvel's Spider-Man stories that we've actually already seen some of these actions take place in the recent footage. As we see during this part of the mission, Spider-Man is actually trying to save the hostage from the thugs in this building. But what's crazier is that the inner demon actually opens fire on the hostage, possibly either massively injuring her or even killing her. And the fact that Insomniac are willing to showcase some of these darker story points within the game's narrative makes me that much more excited for the full game. And if this is just one example of how mature the story's tone will be, I can't wait to see what else is going to happen. Given that the article stated that there will indeed be some points in the game which will involve killing, we know already that Spider-Man won't kill, but that doesn't mean that a villain won't possibly kill someone that Peter knows. And that type of scenario will most likely relate to one of Peter's most loved ones getting injured during some point in the story, like Aunt May, Mary Jane, Miles Morales, or even Gwen Stacy herself. Don't worry, you heard right, there is a huge possibility that Gwen Stacy is actually alive within the Spider-Man PS4 universe. And this revolutionary information actually comes from Michael Ramos, who asked Insomniac Games a question on Twitter. So Michael asked Insomniac, actually, I have a really good question. Will we be able to visit the George Washington Bridge where Gwen Stacy died and pay our respects in a very similar way in how in Batman Arkham City you can pay your respects with the Wayne family? And Insomniac Games shockingly enough replied by saying, who said Gwen Stacy is dead in our universe? So knowing how mature the story of Spider-Man PS4 is going to be already, throwing Gwen Stacy into the mix is going to make things a lot more interesting. And if for some reason you weren't already interested for the game's story, hopefully this new information got you a lot more excited, because I know I am. Now moving on to more of the gameplay-centric pieces of info that we have recently received is now confirmation of 2 more gadgets in the game. So as we know already, we have in total 6 confirmed gadgets that are going to be involved within Marvel's Spider-Man. And the 6 that we know of so far are of course the web tripwire, the web bomb, web shooters, spider drone, the concussive blast, and the suspended matrix. And even though we don't know the total amount of gadgets that are going to be in the full game, we now have the addition of 2 more gadgets of impact webbing and taser webbing. So starting off with the impact webbing, this gadget is apparently going to be a mixture of the web bomb and the web shooter. So rather than shooting out tiny web pellets or a giant web bomb, there will actually be a giant web blast that'll wrap the enemy in webbing instantly. However, when this gadget is used, it's going to take a bit more time for it to recharge after fighting lots of enemies. But still, knowing that a classic move like impact webbing is actually going to be implemented within Spider-Man PS4 makes me even more excited to try it out for myself in the full game. And as for the more scientific gadget, we have actually Taser Webbing that Spider-Man can use on enemies. Now, not much is known about this gadget for Spider-Man PS4, but in previous Spider-Man games, you were able to use electric webbing to take out big turrets or even electrocute bad guys. But seeing how Insomniac are inputting some of the most old-school Spider-Man web tricks out there, like the impact webbing and the electric webbing, I can't wait to see them be used in the full game. Now, moving on to another gameplay aspect that a lot of people are curious about is the amount of suits that will be in the full game. Now, as we know already, the amount of suits that we have confirmed so far for Marvel's Spider-Man is a little bit over 10. But given this latest update, we now know that there will at least be over 25 suits in the full game. Now, even though over 25 suits doesn't sound like a lot, this is indeed going to be the most amount of suits that we've seen in any Spider-Man game. Out of all the other Spidey games that have been developed in the past, the one that has the most alternate suits is actually Edge of Time with just over 20. But knowing that Spider-Man PS4 will feature suits from the comics, the movies, and original designs that Insomniac have made themselves, the amount of suits that we are going to get in the game is going to be something truly extraordinary. And even though we don't know the official number of how many suits will be featured within Spider-Man PS4, we do know that the amount that the game will have lots of variety for players to choose from. And given all the suits that we've seen already and the powers that they have, I am so excited to see what else Insomniac have in store for us. Now, moving on to the final piece of new information for Marvel's Spider-Man actually comes from fellow Spidey Squad community member Hasib Joya, who actually sent me this awesome picture. So like we know already, Marvel's Spider-Man is going to be a ginormous game for you to play on your PS4, but now we know the official amount of gigabytes that it will take for you to download within your console. So Hasib actually found a placeholder box for Marvel's Spider-Man at his local game store, and he found out that the game is actually going to be 45 gigabytes minimum for it to be installed on your PlayStation. Now keep in mind, this does not include the City That Never Sleeps DLC pack, but this is rather how much the base game is going to hold for storage. And for those of you who don't know what that means, just know that this is going to be a really big game. Just knowing how much content Insomniac have packed within the base game, like a huge open world, a very diverse story, and lots of side activities, show what else is in store once the DLC comes around. And just like Marvel and Insomniac games have said in the past, this is definitely shaping up to be one of the biggest and most ambitious Spider-Man games ever made. But anyways guys, that's all the news I have for you today. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below, and which piece of new info excited you the most. Even though I'm beyond hyped to see how the impact webbing and the electric webbing will work during the game, I cannot wait to see how mature the story is going to be during the main narrative. But anyways guys, thank you all so much for watching. Stay spectacular, Spidey fans. Peace out.
Nice. What do you call that stuff? Impact webbing. Why didn't I think of that?